Hello, boys and girls. Mrs. Bassler here again, and Maya. But I found a great story, and it's under one of the beginning books of Dr. Seuss. So I'm going to share this story with you, and it's called The Best Nest. Has a lot of pages, but I think we can read it together. Mr. Bird was happy. He was so happy he had to sing. This was his song. I love my house, I love my nest, in all the world my nest is the best. He does look quite happy, doesn't he? Then Mrs. Bird came out of the house. It's not the best nest, she said. And she looks quite crossed. And there's that nest that she's saying's not the best. She even has her arms folded. I'm tired of this old place, said Mrs. Bird. I hate it. Let's look for a new place right now. So she, look at poor Mr. Bird. He looks a little bit nervous. She wants to go right now. Look for a house. So they left the old place to look for a new one. This place looks nice, said Mr. Bird. Let's move in here. Do you see where they could be looking? I think you're right. That tree looks like it might be a nice place, and it has a little hole in it. But somebody else had already moved in. Doesn't look like he wants to share. So they looked at another house. This one looks nice, said Mr. Bird. And there's nobody in it. Now take a look at really what they're looking at. What do you think of that place for a new nest? You're wrong, said Mrs. Bird. This house belongs to... What does it belong to? Looks like it belongs to a foot. What was that nest? Was it a shoe? Was it a boot? So they went on looking. I like this one, said Mr. Bird. It has a pretty red flag on the roof. I've always wanted a house with a red flag, said Mrs. Bird. Maybe this place will be all right. See what you think, boys and girls. What do you think they're looking at? There's a clue there. It does have a red flag. But what do you think? Good place for a nest? But it was not all right. I guess I made a mistake, said Mr. Bird. What was happening? You're right. Was the mailman delivering letters? You make too many mistakes, said Mrs. Bird. I'm going to pick out the next house. And here it is. Right here. So they took off again, and they're flying. And what do you think they see? Do you see something that would look good as a nest? I think you're right. That little opening in the top tower. They flew in. They looked around. Isn't it too big, said Mr. Bird. I like this place, said Mrs. Bird. This is the place to build our new nest. So look where they are. They went into the top of that tower, and they're looking around. It looks pretty big. It looks big enough for a family. What do you think? Do you know where they are? They went right to work. They needed many things to build their nest. First, they got some hay. They got some soda straws and some broom straws. They even got some sweater string. Are they picking a lot of things with their beaks? They got some stocking string and some mattress stuffing. There they are pulling. It looks like it could be nice soft stuff. Thread stuff. They got some horse hair. They got some man hair. Oh my goodness. Soon they had all the hay, all the straw, all the string, all the stuffing, all the horsehair, all the man hair they could carry. They took it all back to build their nest. Boys and girls, would you look at their collection? Do you see the straw, the string, the hair? And now, do you think they can fit it right in there? There's that opening at the top of the tower. They want to go build their nest. Mr. and Mrs. Bird worked very hard. It took them the rest of the morning to finish their nest. "This nest is really the best," said Mrs. Bird. "I want to stay here forever." So there they are. They put it all together. Look where they put it. See how they made it around the string? They're bringing it up. They picked a good spot for it after all that floor and corner and wood. Do you see where they chose to make that nest? I'm wondering about this. Are you wondering about this? Mr. Bird was very happy too. He flew to the top of his house and he sang his song again. "I love our house, I love our nest in all the world. Our nest is the best." He was so busy singing, he didn't even see Mr. Parker coming. So there he is singing on the top of that tower. Boys and girls, did you figure out where that tower's atop of? Is it a church? And there's Mr. Parker coming. Every day at 12 o'clock, Mr. Parker came to the church. Mr. Parker came to pull a rope. The rope went up to the bird's nest. Are you still thinking? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? The rope rang the big bell right under Mrs. Bird's nest. Bong! 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 Do you remember how many times Mr. Parker rings the bell at? You've got it. 12 o'clock. That means 12 times that bell had to ring. Mrs. Bird got out of there as fast as she could. Bong! 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 It was loud. When Mr. Bird came in, all he could see was a mess of hay, string, stuffing, horsehair, man hair, straws, all over the place. What do you think happened? Are you taking a good look? The bell was ringing back and forth. What happened? "I will look for her until I find her," said Mr. Bird. He looked high. He looked low. He looked everywhere. Where was Mrs. Bird? He looked down into a chimney, but Mrs. Bird was not there. He looked down into a water barrel, but Mrs. Bird was not there. Oh, Mr. Bird, I wonder where Mrs. Bird is. She probably got scared. Then he saw a big fat cat. There was a big fat smile on that fat cat's face. There were some pretty brown feathers near the fat cat's mouth. Mr. Bird began to cry. Oh dear, this big fat cat has eaten Mrs. Bird. Do you see what he's looking at? Oh, Mr. Bird. Oh, Mr. Bird. Mr. Bird flew off. I'll never see Mrs. Bird again, he cried. It was getting dark. It began to rain, and it rained harder and harder. Mr. Bird could not see where he was going. Look at his teardrops. It's starting to rain. It's dark and stormy. I'll never see her again. Then crash! Mr. Bird bumped into something. It was his old house, that old house that Mrs. Bird hated. I'll go inside, said Mr. Bird. Then I'll rest here until the rain stops. Mr. Bird went in, and guess what? Do you have any thoughts? I think you'll be happy. There was Mrs. Bird, sitting there singing, I love my house, I love my nest, in all the world, this nest is the best. Does she look happy? I bet you think he looks happy too. You're here, Mr. Bird said. I thought you hated this old nest. Mrs. Bird smiled. I used to hate it, she said, but a mother bird can change her mind, you see. There's no nest like an old nest for a brand new bird. Do you think Mrs. Bird got home just in time? And what happened? What happened? She laid a beautiful egg. And when the egg popped open, a new bird thought so too. Look at, do you see the blue egg cracked? And there's Daddy looking at the brand new bird. So that was our book about the best nest. Now, you might be looking and hearing the birds outside like we had talked about before in spring. And you might see some things on the ground. So maybe look a little bit if you see birds going in and out of a bush. Or maybe if you have a birdhouse. I have a few in my yard. They've been going in and out of the houses. And guess what? They've been carrying straw and string. And they're going to be making a nest in there. Oh, and Maya came back. She took a walk and she came back. Hi, Maya. Did you like our story today? Till next time we see you. Say bye, Maya. Say we love you. We miss you. Take care.